Last time on the WizardCast.
How long has it been, Brian?
How long has been what?
Brian. No, Brian. It's the bit. Brian, you're supposed to pretend we're stranded on some sort of desert island because that's the plot.
Oh, okay. Start over.
Oh, fine. How long has it been, Brian?
Okay, wait. No, I'm sorry. I still. I get that it's the bit.
Come on.
But you didn't tell me any details. How am I supposed to know how long it's been?
No. It's a bit. It's improv. Okay, it's just a joke. It's not that important. Just make something up. Go with it.
Okay. I'm ready.
All right. Are we starting over?
Yeah.
Okay.
Go.
Okay. How long has it been, Brian?
42.
What?
42.
42. What? This is the last time I write any of these stupid plots.
And now the conclusion of the WizardCast.
I'm Brian Kwong.
And I'm Mark Ross.
We're Salesforce experts that love talking about technology and Salesforce.
We also love humor. Doesn't mean we're actually good at it.
In the Salesforce community, I'm known as the Salesforce Wizard, likely due to me wearing a wizard hat at Salesforce events.
And I'm known as Salesforce Yoda for pretty much the same reason.
You should see the ears.
We have a passion to help educate and entertain people.
So we've joined forces to create WizardCast.
We've got tips and best practices.
We talk with interesting people.
All mixed with quote-unquote jokes and humor.
Welcome
to the
WizardCast.
Brian, I have to say, I know we're in the middle of recording everything, and I know we're both really tired. A lot going on and stuff, but this script is terrible.
But
okay?
It's on Quip.
It's still terrible, though.
I don't see how, Mark.
I mean, Quip doesn't make it not terrible. It doesn't make the quality of the writing any better, though I bet Salesforce wishes it could say that. Maybe they'll announce Einstein Lightning Quip.
I don't know, Mark. I type pretty well in Quip. I mean, how are you going to tear up a digital script? Is that like some hip lingo you young kids are using now?
Brian, not terrible as in able to be torn. Terrible as in the script is awful.
What? Well, okay, look, I mean, yeah, there's some awe sound probably appears in a few words in this script, but I would hardly call it full of awe sounds. I mean, it could. I got some pictures of some puppies and kittens I could paste in.
Thanks to Stuart Edeel for inspiring this awful, awful joke.
See, now you're just adding more awes to the script on purpose. Well, Mark, welcome back. How was the World Tour? And by world, I mean Washington, D.C.
Well, it's called World Tour D.C., yes. And it was awesome because people there are awesome, and big shout outs to Reby, who lit it up at the user group the night before, and apparently is as huge of a nerd as we are.
Really?
Brian. Oh yeah, huge nerd. Like puts me to shame in a few places.
Huh. I bet you're pretty tired from flying back.
Well, yeah. I mean, it was a lot of fun, but it was really tiring, and man, I could really use some caffeine right about now.
Yeah. I know you prefer Pepsi, and I know you're trying to cut down on the caffeine, but I really think we need a coffee break. Coffee break is where we take something shared by Peter Coffee and talk about it.
So Peter recently tweeted, year on year, Salesforce Trailhead X attendance grew at just a few % shy of a Moore's Law rate. Talk about aiming high and doing it.
And the link to that tweet will be in the show notes.
Mm-hmm.
Moore's Law is the observation that the number of transistors in an integrated circuit doubles approximately every 2 years. It's named after Gordon Moore.
And all that gobbledygook that Brian just said basically means that processors will shrink by half their size every 2 years.
So Peter is commenting on the impressiveness of the attendance doubling every 2 years. Because obviously attendance is not going to shrink.
That is pretty attendance. Or
Yeah.
that's pretty impressive.
Yeah. I have never gone to Trailhead X. Have you?
So I actually went the first year. I went. It's inception year, because Apex and the Limits was there on stage.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, but I got to actually attend the whole thing, and it was really interesting at the time. It was very much at that time it was very much a developer conference, and by developer I mean people who were writing code.
Huh.
My understanding is since that time that has changed.
Wait, Mark Hamill thought it was a room full of marketers. Apparently,
Did market? I'm not sure if that's a pun or not.
You did know that Mark Hamill was.
I know he was there,
Okay.
yeah, but my thought is that he immediately was like, because they were Mark Hamill fans, that he was calling them marketers, or Mark Hamill marketers.
You really could use some caffeine, couldn't you?
That's a possibility. That's all I'm saying. But no, so I've ignored it last year, and this year I had a pass. I sent my company's coder instead. And what I've been hearing everybody say is that it is becoming a place for not just coders, the people who are actually doing application development, and even on the declarative side, it's getting a lot of attention there. Apparently, the Flow team had an event there.
Oh, yeah, I heard about
that. Yeah, we missed. And apparently, I know Quip was apparently sending its entire product team. I mean, I say send, it was all in San Francisco. But a lot of product managers are now starting to attend Trailhead X. And that is actually a really big draw, has been a really big draw historically for Dreamforce. For Dreamforce, you had the opportunity to attend and actually get in front of product managers and speak to them and give them your feedback and hear what they had to say, and a real human interaction. And that is now apparently a thing for Trailhead X as well. So to me, that alone is making me kind of perk up and go, I need to go to this next year.
I'm really tempted. I mean, it's tough because especially if it's in San Francisco, because San Francisco's not cheap.
But it's not going to be as expensive as Dreamforce. Let's be clear. The hotels know when Dreamforce is, and they all
Right.
jack up their rates. They're doing it intentionally.
Oh yeah.
That's not standard San Fran rates.
But what I'm saying is, like if I had a choice, I could go to Trailhead X or I could go to Dreamforce. Like I couldn't do both.
Yeah, and that is the trick. It's just the sort of thing where if you wanted another Dreamforce in your life, and a lot of people do, obviously we have the Dreaming events, they're great, but the product managers don't get out there.
Yeah.
They're great for community events, and maybe you'll get like some product manager or a high-level product manager who will be delivering a keynote or something, and those are fantastic because you can corner those people and talk to them, and they're going to pass that sort of thing down. But even then, it's not the same as getting in front of the person in charge of mobile, or the person in charge of analytics, or the person in charge of roll-up summaries. I mean, that's the sort of thing that it can be very valuable to people like us who are really invested and really need to make our voices heard beyond just logging stuff in the ID exchange.
I think you're right. We should try to make it a goal. Next year, the two of us, we go to Trailhead X and let's do record a podcast. Let's record a podcast.
Well, that can be the goal.
Yes.
That can be the goal. Of course, we'll see how that actually works out.
And if you have a podcast or you want to start one, you should really check out Libsyn, one of the largest podcast hosting companies.
Wow.
It's what we use for the WizardCast, and we love it. You can get a free month when you use the promo code PODMAGIC.
You're just guerrilla marketing now, right? You're not even paying attention to convention or niceties or tact. You're just in there and kind of making me miss the fake sponsors a bit. And that's really worrying me, and I think I may really have to go lie down.
We can always go back to the fake sponsors.
No. Let me
Because,
let me deal with this.
We're going to make tons of money from, Libsyn affiliation.
Let's sit on that for now.
Our special guest is a Salesforce developer at YouTube. He's been a Salesforce MVP for simply ages. He's a rad women coach, and finally, as of this recording, he has 14 Salesforce certifications, which is why you may not recognize him from his picture due to all the cert logos.
Yeah, they're kind of crowding his face out. Brian, I think you're forgetting something in the intro.
What?
You forgot to say that our guest is Adam Olshansky.
Well, welcome to the WizardCast, Adam.
Thanks, guys. It's actually Olshansky.
Well, shit.
That's okay.
And that's why Mark gets all the names.
Ah!
But you're very close, though. Surprisingly
Okay.
enough, people mess up Adam more than they mess up Olshansky.
Why? What?
I'm always surprised as well. But
Okay,
How do
this
they
has been
mess
a
up
topic.
Adam?
Yeah, this has been a topic in the community lately. How do they mess this up?
you'd be surprised. I get Alan, I get Alex, I get Alec. I've gotten Tom before. I went to Taco Bell a few weeks ago.
Tom?
I got Sam with like 6 M's. I don't know how it happened, but I have a long list that all my friends are amused by of people just messing up Adam, even when it's right there in front of them.
I'm glad that you're able to join us today, John, because you are kind of a counterpoint for us. So, a few episodes ago, we had Carlos Sequeira on to tell us his Trailblazer story. And one of the comments that came up in there was about Salesforce certifications and how some people go out to get certifications and put the I'm X number certified on their LinkedIn and resumes and get all these certifications that kind of don't mean anything because they take the test, but they don't have the experience to back it up type of thing. And that the perspective of there's not a lot of benefit to getting certifications for certification's sake. And Mark even made a comment in there that we should talk to you as the man with 14 crazy certifications. So first off, I have to ask this, Chris. Why do you have so many certifications? 14 is crazy.
Sure. So I'll start out by saying definitely some very good points made by Carlos, and I would agree there is absolutely no substitute for actual experience. That being said, though, I think I hope I'm not wrong by saying this. At the beginning, when you were talking to Carlos, you mentioned you had 30 years of experience, and that's amazing. I'm 28 years old. So me going up against someone who has 30 years of experience, obviously beyond being impossible, I'm already kind of behind the 8 ball in terms of trying to get a job that's not super entry level, especially when I started out. So I graduated college 6 years ago, and I was doing systems analysis for SAP systems for 2 or 3 years. And then I was as well. And then I discovered Salesforce, and it was so much more user-friendly, so much, click here, click there. And I had an understanding of relational databases, and I had an understanding of Java, so I could pick up Apex, and it all kind of made sense to me. And my first Dreamforce, I took some hands-on courses or hands-on trainings and went through them pretty quickly, and I was really excited about it. And so for me, all of a sudden now I want a Salesforce job, and it's always that chicken and the egg question, right? To get a job, you have to have experience, but you can't get experience unless you have a job. So, the question for me was, all right, I don't have experience. I can't get 10 years of experience in 6 months. What can I do to stand out and kind of prop myself up to say, yes, I know I don't have the physical years of experience, but how can I still kind of inform you that I know what I'm talking about? And for me, certifications were a great way to do that. I really picked it up actually from a theater session with David Liu, who, probably know pretty well, has his SFC 99 blog and was talking about how to get certified. And so, this was kind of, I think Trailhead just had been launched at this Dreamforce back in 2014. And so I didn't really know anything about it. But I had looked at David's blog, and I'd looked at some other documentation out there. And so I started studying and learning things. And for me, certifications were kind of a nice, maybe milestone or end goal toward to kind of reach for, to say, well, I want to learn a lot so I can get the certification, learning a lot at the same time, but also then prove to recruiters out there that, yes, I actually do have some experience, even though I don't actually have any experience.
So let's talk about standing out, because I'm looking at the verification page for your certifications. So your first Salesforce certification was Certified Admin, January 2015. Okay?
Yeah.
This is for the audience, because I think you're nuts. Okay. This is followed by, in February, with Force.com Developer, Certified Advanced Administrator, both in the month of February. In March, you got Certified Sales Cloud Consultant and Certified Service Cloud Consultant. in August of 2015, you got the platform app builder. I mean, so that's 6 certs in 8 months. That's nuts.
So I will say it sounds a lot more impressive than it is. I will also start by saying that I'm by nature a very competitive person. And so I was, learning Salesforce. And before my kind of cert spree started, I took 3 solid months of just reviewing my nights and weekends, all my spare time to try to learn as much as I could. And so before Trailhead, I was fortunate to work at a premier customer, and we had access to the Salesforce U help and training catalog. And so I was taking a lot of those courses. They had a course on Udacity I went through. There were a lot of workbooks at the time that I was going through. And so I was spending all my time kind of learning. And then I saw David Liu posted on his blog about a guy that got 5 certifications in 6 weeks. And so my first thought was, I wonder if I could do that also. And so that was kind of the impetus for that kind of initial beginning there. So that's kind of what started that off. I'll also say in regards to those certs, though, obviously I always recommend starting with admin. Force.com Dev and App Builder are essentially the same thing. I think Force.com Dev's going away tomorrow. So those are more or less the same. And then Advanced Admin, Sales Cloud, and Service Cloud are, again, more or less very, very similar. Sales has some additional sales knowledge and, knowledge about the kind of out-of-the-box sales reporting, and same thing can be said for service. I think service, you also had to learn about knowledge and the console and stuff like that. But there was probably 80% of the content was the same thing. And so, my kind of outlook was, well, I can work really, really hard and I can get 3 certifications, or I can work a little bit harder and maybe end up with 5 certifications. And so for me, the kind of cost-benefit analysis was definitely, I'll be able to stand out even more potentially with 5 certs than with 3, especially when, the Sales and Service Cloud certification study guides tended to say, oh, people with 3 to 5 years experience should go for these. Again, me having 6 months experience, it was an easier argument to make to not getting an entry-level job, saying, hey, I have a certification that someone with 3 to 5 years might get, as opposed to, hey, I did a little bit of studying and you should just hire me because I'm a nice person.
So you have a very large number of certifications now after all this time, all this effort. And I'm asking this is not a loaded question. I genuinely do not know and would like to know. Have you ever encountered where that has actually worked against you, where people see that as kind of like a all hat, no cattle kind of thing?
So actually, yes, is the answer to that, and for a couple of reasons. So first off, I think I got my Service Cloud certification, for example, in 2015, and Service Cloud looks very different today than it does in 2015, and there's a ton of additional functionality on top of that. And so while I may have known the product decently well in 2015, I keep up with maintenance exams, answering a few questions here and there, but if I'm not doing Service Cloud every day, I'm not going to be as up to date as someone with that actual day-to-day experience. And I had an interview where somebody said, oh, I see you're Service Cloud certified. Well, here's something you should know for the Service Cloud certification. How do you, and then he called out some kind of obscure feature within the Service Console configuration that I didn't know off the top of my head. And so it was kind of a, oh, you're certified. Well, let me actually test you and see what you know sort of thing. And totally a fair question to ask. And I'm not necessarily doing Service Cloud every single day. Again, it was more of a, I want to prove that I have some experience and I know what I'm doing. So I can set up Service Cloud. I can configure Service Cloud. I might not know everything off the top of my head, and I may need to go back and do some more learning. And I'm not necessarily going to know as much as somebody that's doing it day in and day out. But I think it depends on how you kind of view the certifications. To me, it tells me that you have some sort of base knowledge with it, but not necessarily that you're an expert. And I think if you even look at the study guides for most of them, the pass rate needed is like 65%, which is by no means completely comprehensive.
Yeah. I mean, if I was going through college with the 65%, I don't think I would be in college for very much longer. When I hear a lot of folks over at Salesforce talk about certifications, they make it sound like certifications is an indication of expertise. And you're saying it's not an indication.
I would take it as, or with a grain of salt, rather. You know,
The
when I see
certification.
somebody, when I see somebody come in with a great resume with certifications, that's great. That tells me they know something about it. And kind of like that interviewer did to me, that's kind of a notification to me. Okay, they have a certification. Let me ask them a practical question and see if they can actually back it up. Because at the end of the day, for the majority of the certifications, you can do a bunch of memorization the night before and potentially pass it. That doesn't mean you actually know what you're doing, especially if you don't have the experience that goes along with it. And so, you know, I would prefer potentially somebody with a certification than without one if I'm just blankly comparing two resumes. But I don't necessarily view the certification as, oh, this person's an expert because they're certified.
Right. You would still interview that person. You would still put them through all the same questions.
Mm-hmm.
It just might let them get, you know, that interview in the first place.
Exactly. And that's kind of how I used it to get my own Salesforce jobs. Was I wouldn't have gotten my foot in the door if I didn't have a couple certifications and wasn't able to stand out from the rest of the packet of resumes.
Okay. I hear from a lot of people of, oh, I want to get certified or I want to do this. And I think there's a lot of trepidation from people about the certification process and what do they need to actually know? What do they need to study? So as you did a lot of studying, you did a lot of work. So now that we're in 2018 and your rapid fire certification has slowed, because I see you've only gotten one in March. Come on.
Yeah.
In
I don't think
2018,
I got
you only
any
one?
Now you're just slacking.
You're just slacking. But with 14 certs under your belt, you must have had some sort of process to help you prepare for each exam and to help teach you what you need to do to pass them. So what is your advice for people who are interested in getting certified and maybe just don't know what to do?
So a very easy first step in 2018 is to go to Trailhead, because I know definitely for all the architect certs, there's a customized trail mix with like 20 or 30 different links and blog posts and actual modules for each cert that you can go through to start learning or just review. And I want to say a lot of the other ones have that as well. I don't know that for certain, but I know you can filter by admin, developer.
I'm pretty
service,
sure
like
certified admin, advanced admin, and I want to say platform 1 developer has stuff up on Trailhead.
Service Cloud, Sales Cloud didn't last time I checked. It was still living in Premier support.
That's true, but even so, on the Trailhead modules, you can filter by sales and service and get a ton of content out there. I think there's 400 some badges out there now, so definitely a lot of them around sales and service and all the other specialists, marketing, community, stuff like that. So that's definitely a good place to start. So last week I attended the Trailhead DX Bootcamp around the architect track, and that's why I ended up getting another cert around that. And I kind of have, to some degree, a little bit of a renewed focus around at some point getting to CTA. I think CTA is really the one cert that you can't just study your way through.
It's the one cert to rule them all. Okay, so start with Trailhead. I think that's almost the ubiquitous recommendation now for people who are just starting out. Okay, great. I got Trailhead. What else do you recommend? Because I'm sorry, I've known people that can go through Trailhead like this, and they're not going to pass a cert.
Sure. Yeah. So Trailhead is always, for me, the first step. And not counting the super badges, I think the majority of Trailhead is a great way to dip your toe in the water, learn some new terminology, learn a new product exists and maybe what it does. But the modules themselves aren't going to give you mastery of a product. The super badges do take it one step farther and actually kind of give you vague generalizations and make you figure out exactly what to build yourself rather than giving you the step-by-step that the modules do. So I'd say I think the majority of the certs have some sort of super badge component to them. And I know the Platform Developer 2 now requires you to have 4 different super badges in order to get that cert now. So the super badges are potentially a logical next step. You may need some prereqs in the modules anyway. And then I would say go take a look at the actual certification study guide.
There's a certification study guide?
Each cert has a study guide. And hopefully after taking the relevant Trailhead modules, none of the terminology will be foreign to you. Now it's more a question of what do you actually know? What do you not know? What do you need to learn a little bit better? Things like that.
And those study guides are on certification.salesforce.com. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So beyond those two things, then I would say if you're really focused on getting certified, maybe find some blog posts, some Salesforce documentation if they're not already outlined in the relevant trail mixes. That has good information about the certification specifically, but also good information to learn in general. I'm a big believer that you shouldn't get a certification just to get the certification. You should actually be learning it. Whether you're using it in your day-to-day job or not, I potentially could learn Marketing Cloud, get a bunch of Marketing Cloud certs, and then maybe in my next job, I can apply for roles that need Marketing Cloud experience because I have learned about it. But studying for a cert and then forgetting about it really doesn't necessarily help anybody, in my opinion.
Okay, so
yeah, which is exactly what Carlos was saying.
Yeah.
So,
geez, this was supposed to be a more contentious podcast. So,
I hate you, Brian.
Screw you, Mark. Start with the Trailhead modules. Go for the super badges. Take a look at the certification study guides. What else? Is that just the trifecta? Is that the perfect score for going on the path to certification success?
So those are definitely my pieces of advice. There are some other ones out there. If potentially your company wants to help you out in learning about it, Salesforce offers some in-person courses that are potentially 4 or 5 days long, where you can get really, really in-depth and hands-on and have an instructor to talk to.
And a few grand in price.
Yeah, those do tend to be pretty pricey, which is why I mentioned if your company is interested in helping you get certified, would be my recommendation on that.
But they test you right afterwards, don't they?
I'm not sure if they
Well,
test you or if you get a voucher, but I feel like
you get a voucher.
Yeah, I think it's
okay.
the voucher.
I think they used to. Well, maybe not all of them, but they used to have the option.
If you are a premier customer, I think those help and training courses are still out there, so those would be another potentially good step to go in depth as well.
The one thing that I would say, and I have to say this as a person who resisted getting certification for years. As in most of my career as a Salesforce admin and developer, I was not certified. Is if you're serious about getting the certification, pick a deadline to take your test. If you really want to push yourself, actually schedule it. Because otherwise it's really easy to say, oh, I don't need to study today. I don't need to do that Trailhead module today. I can do that tomorrow.
100% agree with that. Having it on the calendar is a great motivator to actually getting you to study.
What's your preference for taking the actual certification test? Because you can do it on site, a testing center, and you can do it remote with some external webcams and biometric scans of your face and all that other wonderful stuff. Do you have a preference?
Take a DNA sample.
The DNA sample would probably not be my preference, but I will say I generally take all my certifications from this chair I'm sitting in right now. I bought a $15, $20 webcam on Amazon. The face scan doesn't always work the first time because the face scan tries to use my computer's webcam, and then it has to switch back to the other webcam, and I have to try to unplug and plug things in at the right moment. There's probably a better way to do that. I haven't yet figured it out.
Have a computer that handles the switching better.
Yeah, that could be it. But my preference is here, and that's partially because I tend to take mine at weird times, nights and weekends, and sometimes if I have been studying for a while and putting off scheduling it, I'll just schedule it for a couple hours from now and do a bit of a cram review session at the end. Mm-hmm. But I prefer the flexibility of that because that one is really easy to move. I feel like when you schedule the ones in person, I feel some sort of obligation to all right, there's going to be somebody there to proctor me at this time. I should.
Yeah.
What about you, Mark? Do you have a preference?
Personally, I am one of those people that just likes things to work, right? I've for years and years, I built all my own computers. And I did everything I would custom build, and I just got to the point where I was like, you know what? No, I just want things to work. So I've heard so many horror stories about people trying to get the in-home thing to work and having so much trouble. And I'm just you know what? I'm just going to let somebody else worry about all of that. I will go and do it in person. Yes, I have to drive downtown Kansas City, which is like a 40-minute drive for me into not the nicest area of Kansas City. I don't care. I don't have to worry about it anymore.
Yeah, I've done both center and on site. Remote. I've done the remote 2.1 times, and I do 2.1 times because one was in the office, which went really smooth, had no problem, and one was the app builder transition where I was 2 questions away from completing it when the system just gave me a 500 server error and there was absolutely nothing I could do, and it took me, I think it was like 3 days to get it resolved between Salesforce and the web assessor folks, so I could actually reschedule and take the exam.
This is why I go to Proctored.
Note to people who are out there: don't put off your transition exams right before the end date because it gets horrendously nerve-wracking if something goes wrong. But things don't go necessarily easy at testing centers either. I mean, the system can go down there as well. I think it's less of a problem if at most of the places. The only place I've ever heard having consistent issues is the really huge testing times, right? Like when people go to get certified at Dreamforce and they show up with some 350 people all going into the same room to get certified.
That's what we did last week at the Trailhead DX boot camp. We had a couple hundred people in a room and everyone was getting certified at the same time.
Did anything go down? Did it all work?
Not really. I mean, I think, they had people around for the people that got logged out by mistake or typed in the wrong password in the wrong spot. But, I tended to zone out and focus on my own test. But it seemed to work relatively well, at least.
So since you've taken so many of these tests, do you have any advice for people for the actual test taking itself?
Yeah. So the one thing that I like about there are a couple things I like about the test, but one of them is when you're going through it, it gives you an option to mark it for review. And so hopefully if you're taking the test, you have a general knowledge about the majority of the content on it. So hopefully it'd be a relatively minute amount of things you'd have to do this to, but the ones I'm generally not sure on, I'll mark as review at the end. And then I can say, okay, of the 60 questions, I'm pretty sure on 45, and I'm not so sure about 15. And then I can, go back and review those 15 pretty easily and see if I want to change my answer, but also kind of see if they have any patterns with them. So if I see of the 15 questions, 3 of them are about a specific topic, I'll have in my head a note, okay, after this is over, I need to go review that topic before I take this again. So I try to leave myself enough time to at least go back and re-review the ones I've marked toward the end, and then kind of have a ballpark of how I did before I even submit it. Obviously, the submission numbers now that they give you those help as well in telling you what you know and what you don't. But even then, there's still a broad, hey, you did poorly on this section that has 8 different things in it. It helps me at least to have some sort of idea of within those maybe 6 to 8 things, what it actually is that I need to go back and review before trying to take it again.
Yeah, I think that's great advice, Adam. The other thing I've always found useful for taking these, because they're multiple choice exams, read the question and all the answers before you pick an answer. And I say that because, one, I'm trying to think of the right way to say this. Screw it. Not all the questions are written well, and not all the answers are written well. And some of them, especially for those people who've been doing this for a long time, will go, oh, well, that's kind of true, but you could also do it this way with here, and you can second guess yourself. It's worth reading all the answers and the questions all the way through before you pick one.
The other thing I tend to do is try to use a little bit of logic when I'm answering. For example, on like the app builder, the Force.com dev, chances are the answer isn't going to be write a complex code something or other to solve the problem, because that's not what they're testing you on. They're testing you on the non-coding capabilities. So while there are some questions that you do need to go off and code for, I'd be a little wary of answering some of those questions that way, potentially, because it just logically doesn't really make sense that would be the correct answer when there are multiple non-coding options.
And sometimes it's easier to actually find what the wrong answers are instead of the right ones.
Rule them out.
Mm-hmm.
So a piece of advice that I have, I don't know that I've ever done this, but there is science to back this up, so I'm going to say it anyway. They have done studies. They have confirmed that if you drink a lot before you go take your test, to the point where while you are taking your test, you actually start to feel like you need to go.
As into the bathroom?
Yes. This will statistically result in better answers on your part, because the brain actually tends to know what it's doing, especially if you have studied. And what we do is we start to second guess, we start to pick apart, we start to dissemble, and what we end up doing is screwing ourselves over, essentially, and we start picking incorrect answers when we had it right the first time. And so when you have that urgency, it tends to remove and leave you down to your baser instincts, and the answers tend to be more correct.
And just to clarify, Mark, you're referring to drinking things like water and soda and coffee,
Yes.
not alcohol.
Yeah, I took that
No,
a different
not
way.
alcohol.
Chris thought you were getting into like
Sorry.
bulk
Yeah.
heat
No.
type territory.
No.
If you drink a lot
No.
and you come in,
Not
you're
goes
away.
just hungover.
Just have 5 or 6 and then drive to your testing center. No, do not
It's
do
going to
that.
be a very interesting test taking tip. But
Water.
I could see Steve
Water.
Wallace now with all the planning.
Steve's like, he's got science to back it up. I can't do a Steve impression. I'm not even gonna try.
Yeah, no, none of us could do a good one. Yeah, I mean, there's some truth to that. Don't second guess yourself too hard on a lot of those questions, because you're often right on the first pass.
So you've taken a lot of certification tests. Which one would you say was the easiest, and which one was the hardest?
So the hardest one that I passed, or the hardest one in general?
Wait.
Are there? Whoa!
That means
on.
you failed?
I've
What?
failed a couple of them. There's so far only one I have never passed so far. And that's
Okay, now you have to tell us.
That's
All right,
probably
so
the hardest one.
That's the identity and access management one. That's getting into
No
like
kidding.
what type of identity flow is this? OAuth versus SAML,
SAML.
versus user agent versus a couple other ones out there.
That's a toughie.
And so that one I failed the beta, and then I also failed it last week. But I think I got above 50%, so I'm getting a little closer. The advanced developer one, which was the precursor to platform developer 1 and 2, I think I failed the first 3 times, and then it took me to the 4th time to pass the multiple choice version. And part of that I think was because the advanced developer, which is now platform developer 1 and 2.
Okay.
And I think that's getting. So I was so proud of getting it. Now they're retiring it tomorrow, so I'm a little sad about that.
Oh.
But that one was asking very specific questions about like the Apex and Visualforce Developers Guide, and so I'd remember reading about it, and I could probably tell you what page it was on. I just couldn't remember what the answer was
Okay,
on those questions.
Adam, what you're saying is failure is an option.
Very true. So
That's
don't think of
important.
it as failure, but more of a learning opportunity. Honestly, I like that they give the feedback now that tells you how closely you passed, because even the one I did get last week, the integration architecture, I think it was a very close pass. And so that tells me that, hey, I can't just forget about this. I still have a lot of studying to do if I actually want to have a full grasp of this topic. So that's what I would say in regards to failure and learning opportunities.
What about the easiest one?
I don't know if I'd say the easiest one, but the first one I always recommend people take is the basic administrator. And that's because that's really the fundamentals of everything else. I don't know, aside from maybe the platform developer 1 and 2, I don't know that you really could pass any of the rest of them if you don't have the knowledge needed for the basic administrator.
I would say personally, back when it was dev, right? Just straight up developer. That one was the easiest. My app, that was easier than admin 1 for me.
Really?
Oh yes. Oh
There's
yes.
so many things that overlapped between the two tests. I mean, I think I took one and then the other.
Yeah, I literally sat down and did my admin test, and then I came out for like 20 minutes, and then went in and took my dev test, and which is now App Builder. And Maybe it was because I did them in that fashion, but the dev one I breezed through. It was like 20 minutes in and out. And it was because I think it was more like custom objects, custom fields, workflow. These are all things I knew very, very well. Whereas admin was getting into things like sharing rules and OWDs and, stuff that can get relatively complex. To me, it felt like it was trickier too. Like they wrote the test questions to try and trip you up harder on the admin. Like it was a tougher bar to entry.
That's fair. Yeah, I guess it is kind of a little bit different of a knowledge set. Like Brian said, there is a ton of overlap. But yeah, I would agree with that. Admin's more security based, whereas Force.com dev and now App Builder is more configuration and customization.
Okay, I have to ask. You're a rad women coach.
Mm-hmm.
Totally.
What? And I know this is completely off topic, so I apologize to listeners, but what the heck is a rad women coach?
So Rad Women is a tremendous program started by a couple Salesforce MVPs, Kieran Jameson, who's now with the Trailhead team, and Angela Mahoney, who is still an MVP from Portland. And there are a lot of other tremendous MVPs or Salesforce Ohana members that are involved with the program now as well. Essentially, it's a program to help teach women to code in Apex. And so the original kind of purpose of the program was, prop up women to help other women learn Apex and learn, how to code on the Salesforce platform. It's expanded a little bit for logistical purposes, and so male coaches are also starting to enter the fold. But at its core, it's a program to help women learn Apex. And I tremendously recommend it. It's a 10-week course, so definitely something that requires some degree of commitment. But completely volunteer-based, free to join, and definitely very helpful from what I've heard from the attendees that have completed the program.
Local thing, or is that something people do online?
Completely virtual. So I don't think any of the students that I have for this course are actually anywhere on the West Coast. I think the closest one to me is in Dallas. So we meet once a week for an hour a week. We have weekly homework. We have a managed package you can install in a dev org and work through, and then some Trailhead modules along with it. And then there's a final project at the end that people team up with and put together as well.
So if there's people out there who are interested in participating in that, either as a coach or as a student, how should they reach out to get more information and to sign up?
Sure. So you can reach out to me directly. So you can definitely go to the website at radwomen.org. You can also follow them on Twitter at radwomencode.
Radwomen, so it's plural?
Yeah.
We'll put the links into the show notes as well if you want to follow up that way. Do you got anything else you want to add?
I have one more question.
Is it the one that we ask everyone?
No.
Okay.
No. Have you yet been able to successfully best Professor X and his X-Men?
Have I been able to best Professor X and his X-Men?
You have the helmet.
Oh, the Magneto helmet? I have not, unfortunately. Still working on it.
Oh.
But I have not quite gotten there just yet.
Well, best
Wait,
wishes.
no, what?
Who is the Professor X of Salesforce? Is there one?
Ooh.
That's a good question.
We have Salesforce Wizard, Salesforce Yoda. I potentially could be Salesforce Magneto.
There's Salesforce Sith that's out there. There's
Salesforce
Pooh.
Hulk.
There was a Salesforce Hulk. There was Salesforce Eeyore.
Oh man!
Apparently, my hat has its own Twitter handle. Yeah, I don't know. I bet there's someone.
For those people who maybe wonder what the hell we're talking about, Adam's profile picture, because he tried to get all of those all those certification badges all up on his picture. They basically looked like a Magneto helmet. They were covering like half of his picture.
Oh, I didn't get that was a reference to all the certification logos. I thought you were talking like he had a literal Magneto helmet someplace in the background.
By now.
Like, I have a
was
Deathier mask. I do not have a Magneto helmet, though.
Oh.
Okay. You see, I was going through, I'm like, I don't see this helmet. What's Mark talking about? If you want to see what Adam looks like in that crazy getup, though, you're going to have to go to the Wizard News and take a look at the show notes because I will post it there in the show notes. It will not be in the show notes of your podcast app because that doesn't work for some reason, but it will be in the show notes at thewizardnews.com. So, Adam, we ask this question to everyone because we have no imagination and because, as you may have realized, Mark and I do not become prepared with pre-prepared questions. If you were interviewing Parker Harris, what one question would you ask?
I was interviewing Parker Harris. Out of curiosity, what's been the progress of getting him on the podcast?
No comment.
We have verbal confirmation.
Okay, all right. That's some progress then.
Yeah.
Not from Parker Harris, but we have verbal... No,
Oh, okay.
no, we actually... We do have verbal
Guy down the road is
confirmation,
like,
but
I don't know why.
that's 3 years old, Mark. I mean, we need to kind of refresh that.
Let's see. What would I ask Parker Harris? I think I would ask him...
Okay, we'll allow you to.
Me too? Okay. I don't know. What's kind of the next iteration of Salesforce? We've seen Chatter, we've seen AI, we've seen analytics, we've seen IoT. What's kind of the next big thing? The other one is that they had a quote at Trailhead DX last week, or they had a fireside chat with Mark and Parker, and it came out that on Parker's desk is a quote, something along the lines of, when you're building something, it has to be done right the first time, it has to be fast. And there was another component to it as well that I'm forgetting. But I know Lightning's been plagued by a lot of performance problems, at least in the past. I know they've gotten a lot better in recent releases. Our org's actually on Lightning now, but performance is still the thing we hear the most about. So I guess what are his thoughts on what's going on with that, and not necessarily why wasn't it as performant as it could have been, or maybe should have been, but what are his thoughts on Lightning performance now, and maybe some other things that can be done to improve that a little bit.
I think those are two really good questions. What's coming next? Salesforce VR, maybe. And then why didn't Parker make sure Lightning worked from the get-go? Okay. It was nice to have you in the MVP program, Adam.
I say that with very much love to Parker.
By the time we get Parker Harris on the podcast, it's going to be like Lightning... It would be gone. It's going to be like whatever they call the next UI change, and he's going to be really confused by this question.
Tornado.
It's going to be tsunami.
So, okay, I got one more very random question. What's it like doing Salesforce at YouTube? Like, that's got to be...
For that matter, what does YouTube use Salesforce for?
Well, I don't know if he can talk to that, but...
I mean, I think I'm allowed to speak in broad strokes. We're using it to kind of reach out to our content creators and also to help the internal YouTube employees reach out to all the people that they reach out to. So it's primarily an internal tool. But from what's it like doing Salesforce at YouTube, it's very interesting situation to be in. Salesforce isn't a Google proprietary technology. So there are some pros and cons that come along with that. But, Salesforce and Google obviously have a big partnership now. And so it's very, very unique and very cool to kind of have my kind of feet in two different camps, and, the Google side and the Salesforce side. So I'm trying to get as many pros from each of them as I can. And hopefully this partnership keeps the good times coming. But yeah, I definitely enjoy it as I drop my helmet. It's definitely a fun place to work. Shameless plug. I think we have a couple open recs now if you want to look at the job site.
Salesforce?
Yeah, so I think we have one or two open positions on the YouTube Salesforce team looking for some Lightning component developers. So
this episode should be going up in a few days, so hopefully those recs will still be open. Should be.
Yeah. Where should they look if they are interested in developing Lightning components for YouTube?
I think it's careers.google.com. I keep wanting to say jobs.google.com, but that's
you know what? They can screw it. Listeners, Google it. It shouldn't be that difficult.
Whatever the Google career site is, I think it's careers.google.com.
LMGTFY. Let me Google that for you.
Yeah, let me Google that for you.
That's an actual thing. LMGTFY.com.
It'll actually walk through a video of somebody going to Google, typing in your query, and then returning the results from Google.
It's beautiful.
It's pretty
Nice.
amusing.
Last chance. Any more shout-outs you want to make? Any other one else other than David Liu you want to advertise for free on this podcast?
Am I allowed to advertise myself?
Sure.
Yeah.
I have a new Pluralsight course that came out recently on evaluating your migration to Lightning. I think the bit.ly for it is bit.ly/Lightning migration, but it's trying to help people kind of understand some of the value proposition for Lightning, make the argument to their kind of leadership teams, and then help you kind of hit the ground running with some things right out of the box you can build pretty quickly from day one and try to get your stakeholders on board as well. So I highly recommend checking that out. There's a lot of other great Pluralsight courses as well, some by David. Don Robbins has some. Dan Appelman, who literally wrote the book on Apex, has a couple. So definitely another great resource potentially, if not now, then at some point soon for getting certified as well.
Adam, thank you very much for coming on the podcast. It's always a delight to talk to you.
My pleasure, Brian. Thank you, Mark, and appreciate being a member of the WizardCast for the evening.
We'll have you on again when you have 28 certifications.
All right.
You get double the current number.
WizardCast is produced by Brian Kwong and Mark Ross, directed by Brian Kwong and Mark Ross, technical administration by Brian Kwong and Mark Ross, script writing by Brian Kwong and Mark Ross, audio editing by Brian Kwong and Mark Ross, website maintenance by Brian Kwong and Mark Ross, and our intern this episode of Micah Perry. Wait a sec, Mark. That's not someone on my Twitter list.
That's right. He's a fan who cornered me, not you. And you can be an intern too. Just follow us at WizardCast_pod on Twitter.
Well, he couldn't corner me because I wasn't at DC.
Send us your interview suggestions, jokes, videos, tips, and feedback to wizardcast@thewizardnews.com or head over to thewizardnews.com and click Contact WizardCast.
I mean, I bet if I was at DC, he would have ignored you completely and gone straight to the hat.
And we want to hear from you. If you could ask Parker Harris any one question, what would it be?
Yes, go submit a question by going to bit.ly/ParkerQuestions, all lowercase, and fill out our short form.
And if you liked our last episode where we did an idea exchange highlight, you can help contribute to the next one.
Go to bit.ly/idea highlight, again, all lowercase, to submit an idea to us.
Don't forget to subscribe to the WizardCast and receive our next episode automagically.
Post reviews on Apple Podcasts, aka iTunes, and share this episode. It really helps people find the terrible pain that you just listened to.
Once again, I have to flip it back now because I almost said once again, I'm Brian.
Once again, I'm Brian.
And I'm feeling awfully insecure now with my measly 3 certifications that I've got.
I got 4. Thanks for listening.
Are we comparing now, Brian? Is that what we're doing?
My certification list is longer than yours.
I don't know. I'm tired.
Hi, tired. I'm Brian.
Oh, no. No.